And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection. I'm your host, Robert Pictou. The fishing industry of BC is a complex industry as it's composed of numerous sectors and subdivisions. The industry is composed of 4 sectors, which are commercial fishing, aquaculture, sports fishing, and seafood processing. The BC fishery contributes greatly to the province and country's economics. On today's Open Connection, we open our archives to bring you this story from 1989.
It lasted 18 days, but finally on August 4th, the longest BC fish industry strike since 1975 came to an end. Labor disruption in the fish industry is not infrequent. During most bargaining sessions, some sort of job action is taken, and so a strike in 1989 was not totally unexpected. But this strike was somewhat different than those of the past. There were the usual demands from either side for either wage increases or wage concessions, but the stringency of those demands this time around was magnified from previous bargaining sessions, partly because of the Free Trade Pact signed with the United States. A full year before this summer strike, there was evidence free trade would be a major factor in fish industry negotiations. In June 1988, union representatives told the processing companies that any attempt to use the Free Trade Pact to cut wages would not be tolerated by fish workers. BC fish workers make an average $12.50 an hour, the highest fish industry wages in the world. So when the contract talks began, the companies argued for concessions, saying with free trade, they couldn't compete with American companies which have lower labor costs.
If we don't reduce our labor costs, we cannot be competitive with the American buyers.
But the unions weren't buying that argument.
The companies are blackmailing us into taking $3.50 an hour cuts for people coming in these canneries to work, on the assumption that with free trade, they must have these concessions in order to be competitive with the very same people they've been competing with for many, many years and have beat in the marketplace. It's a political environment that has been set by the Tory government, a political environment in which the Minister of Fisheries helped create, and through his actions on the export regulations have been part and parcel to what has been going on. And you know, we are not prepared to be blackmailed.
With both sides firmly entrenched in their positions, contract talks broke off on June 23rd. Then a month later, on July 21st, fish workers across the province walked off the job after voting more than 90% in favor of strike action. Most, but not all, Prince Rupert fish workers supported the strike.
Well, I think it's definitely necessary when a company is out there showing record profits and their profits keep going up every year, and they put forth demands that are asking workers to eliminate or cutbacks as they are. Probationary employees all the way up to our benefit plans, dental plans, everything. It can't be tolerated.
We don't want to be cut. Don't cut any wages, don't cut any privileges.
So you support the strike?
Of course, more than ever.
I think it sucks.
Why?
Well, a lot of people are going to be losing out on money and jobs, and just getting back to work, and now we're going to get locked out.
From the beginning, it was evident the strike would be a bitter one.
Now, we're not going to roll over and play dead.
Is this a make-or-break strike as you see it?
Well, I think that there'll be blood spilt, perhaps, if they want it to be spilt this year, but it won't all be ours. A lot of it will be their own.
For 70 years, the industry has developed under a protective umbrella of regulations which have barred those competitors. They're now in the game, and we have to wake up to that.
By the time the strike was in its 5th day, its effects were being felt outside the industry, especially in Prince Rupert, where merchants rely heavily on trade generated by fish dollars.
We've had a substantial decrease in business, which means cutting staff's hours and cutting back on ordering and manufacturing goods in the store. So it means a lot.
Usually this time of year, this is when you depend on the majority of your sales. This is the biggest time of year for most stores in Prince Rupert.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Even more than Christmas?
Yeah, even more than Christmas, I would say. It's pretty close, neck and neck. But usually, if it's a good summer, we usually have a better than Christmas.
And why is that?
All the fishermen are in. They have nothing to do. They want to spend their money, buy portables, Walkmans, and stuff around town. They're stuck here. So they basically want to spend their money, and same with the shore workers. Shore workers, we get a lot of money off the shore workers. They like to buy this when they buy their stereos and TVs and VCRs and stuff like that.
And the strikers themselves are starting to worry about the lost work time. Many rely on unemployment insurance payments during the off-season. But if the strike were to drag on too long, they wouldn't get the necessary number of work weeks to qualify for UIC.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about right now.
But if shopkeepers and the fish workers were concerned about the negative effects of the strike, others could see a possible benefit. With most of the commercial boats tied up, Skeena River sport fishermen thought it would mean more steelhead would make it past the usual summertime tangle of nets at the river mouth.
The biggest problem is in timing. They come in at the same time as the bulk of our sockeye come in and the bulk of our pink salmon come in. And because we're fishing those fish, then obviously the steelhead are going to get caught in there because they seem to swim closer to the surface like the pink and the sockeye do, and the Chinook don't. They swim deeper, and so we have a high interception rate definitely on steelhead. So when the fishery's not happening, it's definitely good for steelhead.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. In 2020, COVID-19 spurred an increased interest in fishing as people flocked to the outdoors for safe, socially distanced recreation and relaxation. During this pandemic year, a 6% increase in the sale of freshwater licenses, with an 18% increase in BC resident anglers. Let us return to the archives to learn how 1989 anglers may benefit from the strike.
Sport fishermen were confident the strike would mean better angling opportunities on the Skeena.
The fishing strike is going to help the enhancement of all the fish that come up these rivers, and it's not good for the commercial fishermen, but it's good for the fish themselves, and hopefully it'll help build the stocks back up to where they were 20 or 25 years ago.
I think it will be better, seeing we got those commercial boys shut down right now, and a couple more days and I think it'll be pretty hot in here.
At the beginning, the Fishermen's Union had strong support for its strike. Most union boats were not fishing. As well, the 1,200-member Native Brotherhood of BC threw its weight behind the strike, and many of the Vietnamese boat captains also kept their boats in port.
Everybody's worried that it might be a long strike. I hope it's not, but if it is, we're going to have to stay out until the company backs down, because we can't afford to accept their conditions.
It is a lot of concessions for us. We'd be going back to 1950s and 60s if we agreed to go with the concessions they want now.
However, by the end of the first week, major cracks were destroying union solidarity. Large runs of pink and sockeye salmon were running up the Skeena River. Fishermen were slowly losing their window of opportunity to catch their salmon for the year. More and more boats were setting their nets, and the Northern Native Brotherhood, saying bankruptcy is looming for many of its members, withdrew its support for the strike.
Last 2 weeks was very important. You see, that's the only time we make money on it. Like 20th July to end of July, first week in August. That's the best time in Skeena.
And the fish companies were also feeling the growing pressure. They could stand to lose millions if the fish weren't caught and processed. Some of the smaller companies gave up their demands for wage concessions and signed collective agreements, including wage raises, with the union. Finally, the four major fish companies in the union got back to the bargaining table with the assistance of mediator Vince Reddy.
I think anyone who wasn't nervous when you're dealing with the health of the third largest industry in the province would be foolhardy.
Those talks didn't produce a settlement to the dispute. Instead, the union came up with a new tactic to put pressure on the companies. It was an untested strategy, and the union wasn't sure if it would work or if the workers would go along with it.
For the first time since the dispute began, the media have been moved right out of the union's building, well out of earshot, away from any angry comments that might spill out of the meeting hall.
I'm sure you can understand in these difficult circumstances, sometimes the meetings take a little longer than normal.
The union's tactic to pressure the companies was to have the fishermen accept the latest offer, but shore workers and tendermen were to reject their offer.
It's a new tactic. It's something that has never been done. They're using all kinds of new tactics, shipping fish across the border, and So we're just trying something a little bit different.
The strategy would allow the fishermen to catch the salmon before they had all migrated into the river systems. But fishermen would have no place to take their catch for offloading and processing, as the shore workers and tendermen would still be on strike. That situation would create chaos in the industry and perhaps force an end to the dispute.
We've said this is just a plug-it-up operation where they're going to go out and fish, and they're going to come in. They tie to a public dock, if they tie to a company dock or whatever, there's a danger that that fish is going to go bad, and if it does, I think the smell will reach Ottawa.
But not all union members supported the position.
Just that the union is sort of splitting itself up, telling the fishermen to vote and go fishing, and the shore workers to reject. I'm so confused, and everybody else is confused.
The tactic did indeed create a great deal of confusion in the industry. Hundreds of fishing boats took advantage of openings on the north coast, but then most could not find buyers for their catch.
We're sitting here now with our first real load of fish on board and unable to sell them at the present time.
And what does that mean if you can't sell these fish? What does that mean to your living for the whole year? How does that work for you?
Oh, that impacts pretty hard. I'm a full-time fisherman, but I try to make my living out of salmon and herring, and that makes it rather difficult to get through the year, as does for the rest of the crew that I work with.
You have, how many people are you?
5 people we work together on this boat.
And they're all relying on this for at least a good portion of their income this year.
I would imagine they're going to be not holidaying too far, possibly Spuzzum. Maybe the North Burnaby Inn, that'll be about it.
We might have to throw it away.
There were a few cash buyers on the fishing grounds near Prince Rupert, but many didn't want to purchase a less expensive pink salmon from the boats. Some buyers would only take the more commercially valuable sockeye salmon.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. We go where the fish are to bring you the freshest catch is the opening statement found in REO's Trading Company Limited website. Founded in 1935 as a seafood wholesaler for the Tokyo fish market, REO has positioned itself to provide a diverse and stable supply of seafood for customers around the world. Let us return to the archives to discover how many boatloads of fish it was buying in 1989 in Prince Rupert.
The Arrow Company in Prince Rupert was one of the few large buyers on the coast accepting fish. At times, up to 150 boats were tied up at its dock, waiting to offload. But for some fishermen, the wait was too long. With their holds plugged with pink salmon and with large runs of valuable sockeye still available to catch, the temptation was too much. Some boat captains dumped their pink salmon overboard in order to make room for the sockeye.
Dumped most of it.
You've had to dump some?
Right.
I guess there's a lot of dumping going on, eh?
Right. I really didn't want to dump anything, eh? That's worked pretty hard to get it.
Well, it's a crime on the books, and it's a crime morally. It really is that we should be put in the situation where we actually have to entertain the idea of dumping fish. Like and it's been going on for the last 2 weeks. The cash buyers out there are saying we only want to buy your sockeye. Your pinks are worthless. So people have been out there in the. Out there in the Skeena River, throwing their pinks overboard. I was, chuckling to myself. I was thinking, well, maybe it'll at least be good for the crabs, but it's certainly not good. Certainly not good for the fishing industry or the people of Canada.
But even for fishermen who weren't prepared to toss their catch overboard, keeping it for much longer would not be possible. Even when kept on ice, the fish would only keep for a few days before going to rot.
I wouldn't want to leave them too long. I guess 5 days, and then we'll be looking to dispose of them.
Well, let's give a message to the bargaining boys. Get your asses up there on that table. Let's get this contract settled.
Finally, on Friday, August 4th, with the strike 2 weeks old, and with most of this year's salmon run at stake, frustration showed itself when the federal fisheries offices in Prince Rupert were occupied by striking shore workers.
The purpose of coming in here is to get the attention of Thompson and sit down and discuss the situation that is going on here in British Columbia and mainly in the north with the amount of pink salmon being thrown overboard because cash buyers are refusing to purchase pink salmon. All they are purchasing is the redfish, sockeye, coho, springs, and dog salmon. The rest of that resource is being thrown overboard. And we're here to bring a point that we want to get back to work, and the companies right now are refusing to meet with us. They're basically holding the shore workers, tendermen, and to an extent the commercial fishermen as hostages in this situation, forcing the shore workers to take wage cuts and allowing a Canadian resource to go upstream, be wasted, and no economic value being afforded to the people of Canada.
I'm a shore worker at McMillan Fisheries here in town, and I work during the summers, and I'm getting sick and tired of what's happening around here, and I hope Sid gets off his ass and starts doing things the way he should see it, and that, like I said, I'm in the position the other guy there, Pierre's in, because I've got to go to college.
Striking workers accuse the Federal Fisheries Ministry of manipulating salmon openings to assist the companies. Still, they contend the office occupation is not a sign of desperation.
I don't think it's desperation. I think what it is here is that we got to start facing the reality of the situation that we have been placed into. And that is that there is a very major attack going on here in British Columbia against the United Fishermen and Allied Workers Union and the workers themselves, where they are trying to force people, new hires, to take a $4 an hour cut in wages, and from the senior people who have put in time, and we've developed a pension plan to get going, is they're planning on taking that away. Overtime conditions, working conditions, flexible hours, the whole thing there is just atrocious.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. We go where the fish are to bring you the freshest catch is the opening statement found in REO's Trading Company Limited website. Founded in 1935 as a seafood wholesaler for the Tokyo fish market, REO has positioned itself to provide a diverse and stable supply of seafood for customers around the world. Let us return to the archives to discover how many boatloads of fish it was buying in 1989 in Prince Rupert.
The following day, Saturday, and another occupation, this time at the BC Packers plant in Prince Rupert. The workers say the real issue now is not so much $1 or $2 an hour wage hike over the life of the contract, but whether or not the fish industry will provide a viable living in the future.
15 years old, and I started at 25 cents an hour working for Canadian Fish in Steveston. And we fought a lot of years to get the wages we're getting now. And now if they're going to start the new workers at $9 an hour, that's a rate we got 25 years ago. And if that goes through, what are they going to do to us 2 years from now or 3 years from now when the next contract is up? And they want to cut down our Canada pension plan, our medical plan, dental plan. And you just can't live on those low wages.
The union's strategy of sending the fishermen to work while keeping the plant workers on strike was meant to pressure the companies. But to a degree, it also pressured the union. There was some animosity between union members, those who were working and those that weren't.
Speaking as a fisherman, we can't tolerate the strike to go on much longer. I have 2 children, and I have my rent was due on the 1st of August, and there's bills. I took out a loan so that I would be able to fish. But my goodness, it's really a desperate situation.
It's really hard, and it's really heartbreaking, because you feel sorry for the fishermen sitting there with their fish on their boats. They can't unload them. They get angry with us, and I mean, there's nothing we can do. We're only trying to keep our jobs and our rights, and it's not so much the money; it's the other things they want to cut away from us.
Despite the impending loss of the fishing season with its economic consequences, most strikers were determined to last it out.
Basically means that I'm not going to be doing anything. I guess I'll be on welfare. First time in my life, so that's 29 years, and I'm not very happy about that at all.
There could be some real hardships for our members, yes, but it's amazing when you think about it that people are still prepared to vote 91% to reject an offer when it affects their unemployment. It's going to affect their future. But people are looking at that package the company's talking about their probationary rates, where people are going to be starting at $9 and $10 an hour, and they have to work 2,500 hours and stuff like that. I mean, people are looking at it as a future of the union. Eventually you're going to have...
And then on Monday, August 4th, it all came to an end.
The BC salmon war is over. Striking fish plant workers have voted overwhelmingly to go back to work. The shore workers...
The agreement between the union and the 4 major processing companies came just in time to save millions of dollars worth of salmon from going to rot. There were none of the concessions the fish processors were demanding in the 3-year contract. Still, the deal was a compromise for both sides.
For an organization our size, I think to come out of it, not only with no concessions but with gains, is not a bad resolution of the dispute.
Well, in this kind of strike, there can be no winners at the end of it. It's been very, very costly. I guess the best we can say is that there's been a truce called before we killed each other.
A key element of the settlement called for an industrial inquiry commission to investigate the impact free trade is having on the BC fish industry, particularly the effects of new competition from American processing plants like this one in Anacortes, Washington.
Costs of the strike were becoming so onerous on everyone concerned, and the companies just could not afford to carry on, that there needed to be some responsible way to deal with this issue, and we felt that this way we can still perhaps deal with the concerns we have and live to fight another day.
Before the votes were even counted, tendermen in Prince Rupert were unloading the fish, and fishermen were heading out to catch more.
There's some good fishing to be had for another month in the south. We're running out of time in the north, but there's another week or 2 of good fishing up north. So there's lots of fish around in the next few weeks.
The end to the dispute came in time to save most of the salmon season. Still, there was concern by many the effects of the strike would be felt in the months to come.
I would probably suggest that as the year goes on and towards Christmas, that if there's shortage of dollars coming in from the fishing industry, it'll show in the long run, and we'll feel it over the coming season, yes.
And then there's the uncertainty surrounding the much larger issue that many contend was at the heart of the dispute, the effects of the GATT ruling and free trade on the BC fish industry.
The employers in the main were supportive of the free trade agreement. I question the wisdom of taking that position, given in hindsight what's happened now, whether or not it would have been wiser for the employers to have withheld their endorsement of the free trade agreement. I don't believe that British Columbia workers should be asked to pay the price by having their wages slashed and their benefits slashed of this offshoot of the free trade agreement.
British Columbia's canneries are located close to the fishing grounds so that long hauls can be obviated. For fish are perishable and freshness is a must in maintaining the high quality of British Columbia's canned salmon. Salmon canneries are self-contained little villages, strategically located up and down the coast, all the way from the United States border to Alaska. British Columbia's salmon canneries are as modern as tomorrow. As soon as the vessel arrives at a cannery, its cargo is unloaded, mostly by machinery. The fish are handled on conveyors similar to an escalator, which reach right into the hold of the vessel. Talk about your modern methods. A ledge for each fish, just as you have your own step in a department store escalator. From the time the salmon arrive at a cannery until they are packed in shiny cans, the emphasis is on speed, for time is the enemy of quality.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection from his mind to his heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.